Hey, it's Mr. Tokar. Welcome Algebra 1. Today we are going to take notes on solving equations. Now we're going to introduce equal signs into our expressions, which will make them equations. So on to the slides. So today is all about solving equations. So the standard we're trying to master is I can solve equations. So you should see, please don't call me after midnight. This looks super familiar. We've done please don't call with simplifying expressions. Now we're just going to add, please don't call me after midnight. So let's look at example 1, and over here we can see the steps to solving an equation. Just like an expression, we're going to start by preparing. We're going to then distribute. And finally, we're going to combine like terms, just like solving expressions. Now, the two things we're going to include and add on is after we've prepared. We've added our invisible ones. We've changed our minuses to plus and negative. After we've distributed, after we've combined like terms on both sides, we are then going to move on to moving our variables, adding or subtracting, and then multiplying or dividing. So let's see this in action with example number 1. Starting with please prepare. We need to prepare our equation to be solved. So I'm going to highlight prepare. Remember, any subtraction, we're going to add a negative. So if we look at our first example, we have a subtraction between b and 3, b minus 3. So we're going to turn that into adding a negative 3. We have a subtraction after the 2 minus 2b. We're going to change that to adding a negative 2b. After that, I'm going to check, do I have any invisible ones? I have no invisible ones in front of parentheses. However, I do have an invisible one in front of the variable b. So I have 7 times 1b plus negative 3 equals 10b plus 2 plus negative 2b. Now, what's new about this is it's not an expression anymore because we have an equal sign. So what I need to do during the prepare step is I need to add a bar down the middle of my equation. That way I can keep track of what's the left side and what's the right side. So draw your line down the equal sign. The big rule with solving equations is we're not allowed to combine like terms on the left and right side of this bar. So next, we have distribute. So please don't, we're going to distribute. During the distributing, we are going to multiply terms or invisible ones outside of the parentheses. So the only parentheses on either side of my equal sign is this 7. So let's distribute the 7. And if you remember, when we distribute, we are multiplying. So we have 7 times 1b is 7b. 7 times a negative 3 is negative 21. Okay? I didn't touch anything on the other side of the equation, so I'm going to put in my equal side and bring everything down. 10b plus 2 plus negative 2b. So we've prepared, we've done our distributing, so we're on to combining like terms. Okay, so combining like terms. So there's a new rule with equations. We drew this bar down our equal sign because we're only allowed to combine like terms that are on the same side of this bar. So if I look on the left side of my line I drew down the equal sign, I have 7b and negative 21. These are not like terms, so I can't combine them. Okay? If I look at the right side of my line, I do have a pair of like terms. I have 10b and negative 2b. Since these are both on the same side, I can combine them. So I can combine 10b and negative 2b. I can't. The one thing I can't do is I can't combine 7b over to this side because it's on the opposite side of our line. So I'm going to combine 10b and negative 2b. So 10b plus negative 2b is 8b. Everything else I didn't touch, I'm just going to move down. So I'm going to bring down the 7b, bring down the negative 21, bring down my plus 2. Now I can check. The left side has no like terms, and the right side has no like terms. So I'm all done combining like terms. So on to, please don't call me, the M stands for moving our variables. So we have a variable on the left side, 7b, and a variable on the right side, which is 8b. During the move variables, I need to move the smaller variable to the opposite side of the equal sign. And I can do this by either adding or subtracting. So the smaller variable between 7b and 8b is 7b. It's one smaller than 8b. So I need to take this 7b and move it to the other side. So I can either add this over or subtract it over, okay? But we need to make sure we pick the correct one. Since this 7b is a positive 7b, that means I'm going to subtract 7b. I'm going to do the opposite. So I'm going to subtract 7b from both sides of the equation. Okay? Whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other side. So I'm going to subtract 7b from both sides of the equation. On the left side, 7b minus 7b is 0, which is good because that means we can cross this out and it's gone. On the right side of my equation, 8b minus 7b is just 1b. Extend my line a little more. Now I'm going to bring everything down that I haven't touched. So I'm going to bring down my negative 21, and I'm going to bring down my positive 2. So we have now moved our variables, and we're ready to go on to our A and after. A stands for adding or subtracting. So now, if we look at adding or subtracting, we are going to add or subtract the constant. Remember, the constant is just a normal number with no variables away from the variable. So on our right side of the equation, we have a 1b and the constant 2. What we want to do is move the 2 away from the variable. So we want to put it on the other side away from the 1b. Now, just like in the last step, in order to move this constant to the other side, we have to do the opposite of what's in front. Since this is a positive 2, we need to do the opposite, which is subtracting 2 from both sides. When I subtract 2 from both sides, 2 minus 2 is 0, so we get to cross those off. And negative 21 minus 2, negative 21 minus 2 is negative 23. So we have negative 23 equals 1b. Okay? So we've prepared, distributed, combined our like terms, we've moved the variable, we've moved the constant. Now we're on to our last step, which is to multiply or divide. So to multiply or divide the coefficient in front of the variable. So in front of our variable, we have a 1b, and I'm going to move this down so it's out of our way. I have a 1b in front of our variable. So since this is 1 times b, I'm going to make sure I divide both sides because dividing is the opposite of multiplying. So I'm going to divide each side of my equation by 1. When I divide each side by 1, the 1's cancel out. And on the right side, I'm left with just b. And on the left side, negative 23 divided by 1 is negative 23. So the answer to my problem, to the solution to my equation, is b is equal to negative 23. b is equal to negative 23. We could also write this with the b first. b equals negative 23. Either way is fine. It just looks a little weird when we have it flip-flop. So that means if we were to go back into our problem and plug in negative 23 for all of our b values, this solution would work out perfectly. Okay, so please don't call me after midnight. Let's try another example. So example number 2. The first thing I want to do, again, is I'm going to draw my bar down my equal sign. That way I don't get confused and combine like terms that are on different sides of the equal sign. So we're going to start by preparing. So we're going to look for any invisible ones. I don't see any invisible ones. And I'm also going to change any subtraction into adding a negative. So I have one subtraction. So I'm going to turn this into plus a negative 5. Okay? So I made a mistake. I do have one invisible one. You can see it here right in front of the x. So I've added my invisible ones in. I've change all my subtraction to adding a negative. So I'm all done preparing. Next, I'm going to distribute. So any numbers in front of parentheses need to be multiplied through. So I have no parentheses on the left side, but I do have one pair on the right side. So I'm going to bring down whatever I didn't touch. 3x plus 1 equals 2x. And now I'm going to distribute this negative 5. So negative 5 times 1x is negative 5x. And negative 5 times 1 is negative 5. Be careful not to forget about that negative. So now we have distributed. There's no more parentheses, so I know I'm done. Next is combining like terms. Remember, when we combine like terms, you can only ever combine like terms that are on the same side of the equal sign. So if I look at the left side, I have 3x and 1. 3x and 1 aren't like terms, so I can't combine them. So I'm going to check the other side of my line. On the right side, I have 2x, negative 5x, and negative 5. Now the only like terms I have is this negative 2, or is this 2x and this negative 5x. So I'm going to combine those. So 2x plus negative 5x is negative 3x. Now I'm going to bring down everything I didn't touch and bring them along for the ride. So I'm going to bring down 3x and 1, and I'm going to bring down this negative 5 that I haven't touched yet. Now if I look on the left side, I don't have any like terms. On the right side, I don't have any like terms, which means I'm done with combining like terms. Please don't call me. Time to move our variables. So we're going to figure out which of our variables is the smallest and move it to the other side. So 3x and negative 3x. Well, negative 3x is definitely smaller than 3x, which means I need to move negative 3x to the other side. Now, since this is a negative 3x or a minus 3x, in order to move it to the other side, I have to do the opposite of what's in front. So the opposite of minus 3x or negative 3x is plus 3x or a positive 3x. Whatever I do to the right side, I have to do to the other side. Okay? Also, you'll notice I didn't add 3x to the 1 because those aren't like terms. So I need to make sure when I move it to the other side, I add it to something that's like. Now I'm going to move down and simplify. So 3x plus 3x gives me 6x. I'm going to bring down the plus 1. Negative 3x plus 3x is 0, so we get to cross those out. And I'm going to bring down this minus 5 because I haven't touched it still. Now, all of our variables are in one place. We moved over our smaller variables, so we're done moving our variables. Please don't call me after. After stands for add or subtract. So we want to find the constant, the number with the variable, and move it away from it. We don't want him to be there. We want our variable to be all by himself, and right now he has this 1 next to him. So in order to move this +1 away from the variable, I'm going to do the opposite. And the opposite of +1 is -1. So I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. And remember, I have to do it from both sides. So +1 minus 1 is 0. So we cancel those out. I'm going to bring down my 6x. -5 minus 1 is -6. And look at that. The x is almost all by himself, and there's no more terms with him on that side. So we're done adding or subtracting the constant away from the variable. Now our very last step is to multiply or divide. We want our x to be all by himself. Right now he has a 6 in front of it, and this is 6x or 6 times x. So the opposite of multiplying is going to be dividing. So the only way we can get rid of this 6 is to divide both sides of our equation by 6. So on the left side, when I take 6x divided by 6, my 6's cancel out, and I'm left with just x on the left side. On the right side of my equation, I have -6 divided by 6. So we'll clickety-clack our calculators, and -6 divided by 6 is -1. Okay, so we've multiplied or divided. In this case, we divided the coefficient in front of the x, so 6 was the coefficient in front of the x, to both sides. And once we've done that, we'll check off multiply or divide, which is midnight in the acronym, and we're all done. And we know we're done because x is all by itself. X is all by itself. We'll make this a little bit more clear. So x equals -1. And that is how we solve an equation. Please don't call me after midnight. To go over the steps one more time, we prepared, just like an expression. We distributed, just like an expression. We combined like terms, but we need to make sure we only combine like terms on the same sides. So we combined like terms on the right side, and there were no like terms on the left side. Then we moved the smallest variable to the other side. So -3 was our smallest variable, and we moved it to the left side. Then we add or subtract the constant away from the variable. Since this constant was with the variable, we moved it away. And then we multiplied or divided, and we divided the coefficient, which was 6, on both sides. And we're left with x all by itself is equal to -1. And we're done.